Let me talk about the Muslim community. This is what I find to be much more fun. One of the things that you will find, for those of you who are younger, it's the only thing that has any value to the idea of getting older. You know you're getting older when you suddenly reflect on something and say, I remember 20 or 30 years ago. The game's over once you do that. When I used to hear people say that, I always thought, my God, that's terrible. I hope I never get to that stage. Now I try to say it was 20 years instead of 30 years instead of 40 years, etc. The only thing I brag about is how long I've been married, which is 33 years. But anything beyond that is a problem for me to deal with. But the reality of it is that when you get to this age, you can then say what you like, especially if you fly into a city and you know you're leaving the next morning. It's like watching, the old Westerns. You come into the town, you shoot up, and you leave at night. The only time it's a problem is if you're going to stay. But if people get upset, you still know you're going to leave. You're going to make it back to your hotel, hopefully. And we won't say what hotel I'm at. And then you head off to whatever airport I'm flying out of.
I know where you are.
You know where I am. That's the problem. I know. This Iranian connection is very dangerous. That's what they meant in the introduction. Whenever I go to Iran, people somehow expect me to wear a tie. Now, normally I wear it the first time and then I take it off because I always want to announce when I'm in Iran wearing the tie. This makes everybody feel happy because they expect an American to wear it. On the other hand, it's the one thing that's illegal in Iran, wearing a tie. I mean, that's what everybody always loves to say, Oh, it's illegal to wear a tie, but please wear one because people expect you to as a Westerner and a non-Muslim. What's the challenge in the 21st century in terms of Muslim-Christian understanding, especially from the perspective of the Muslim community? I have been functioning within the Muslim community for about 30 years because my teachers were Muslim, because virtually everybody I studied with in graduate school, most of the grad students were Muslim. And therefore I, in a sense, am probably one of the few non-Muslim original members of things like the MSA and AMSS. I'm on more Muslim mailing lists than one can believe, including fundraising mailing lists. But the reality of it is that things have changed enormously. But the challenge to the Muslim community is, are you going to show in the 21st century that they have? Are you going to show that you're now at a second, third stage in development? The Muslim community today has the human and financial resources to make a difference. It did not have those resources 30 years ago. 20 years ago. You did not have the number of Muslims. You did not have the number of Muslim professionals. You did not have the number of successful Muslims in the professions, of educated Muslims, etc. Okay. Those human and financial resources are there. The question is whether or not that will be harnessed, so that one functions effectively within the broader Muslim community of the United States and in interaction with the non-Muslim community in the United States. Let me make some general observations about Muslim-Christian relations. The most important thing is that the way in which Muslim-Christian relations really moves forward is not to start with what Muslims and Christians share in common religiously, but rather what they share in common socially. And I've never put it that way before, and I'll show you why. It's when you encounter the other in the workplace and in school and realize that the other, in many ways, is very much like me. When people encounter each other as neighbors and realize that they share a lot of concerns, that they are parents, they are concerned about their children, they are concerned about their neighborhoods, they are concerned about family values, they are concerned about education, about sex education, they are concerned about drugs, they are concerned about... It's when people actually work together side by side that they not only see the differences, but they see what they share in common as human beings, and they also see a good deal of the values that they share in common. Then one can move to the next stage. If you start simply with the theological, part of the problem is a lot of people I know are very devout, but they don't really know all that much about their religion. You know what I mean? They know a lot in terms of their devotion, but when they go to engage somebody from another faith to talk, they often don't know very much about the person's other faith, let alone about themselves in terms of that level of sophistication, and they get bogged down. Now, but to move to the theological, allowing for the differences that exist between Muslims and Christians, and that should exist and should be celebrated, the commonalities are staggering. The belief in God, prophets, revelation, the belief in family and social values, the concerns with secularism, materialism, etc., they are staggering. But often our differences get in the way of seeing the commonalities. That's one challenge.